Morning, how are we all? Well, I've recently dug the Game of Thrones series out of my massive DVD and Blu-ray collection again because I kind of bought this, probably in reverse, but that's the Risk Skirmish Edition Game of Thrones style, which I shall be learning to replay at some time. I used to play Risk an awful lot in the past. The last console version I played would have been the PS1 one. Other ones are too cartoony for my liking. So what else has been occurring? Well, as well as my regular volunteer spot at Emmaus, I'm now officially back on the register as a volunteer at Ipswich Community Hub, and very glad to be back after a kind of not there but kind of there, part of the furniture kind of arrangement for about 3 or 4 months. As to how the circumstances for me going from becoming a full volunteer to just being grey area, how they came about is another story that I don't wish to broadcast because that's all over and done with. I would put it down to a clash of personality and misjudgment. Sorry, those who are offended by me blowing my nose, I needed to. It's a human thing. We are most definitely in autumn here in the UK, which means my park walks have been less frequent because I only really like to do that when the weather's nice. And not being a dog walker, I don't have to walk in the park with a dog in the pouring rain, so I choose not to. Game of Thrones. The first 5 seasons or so, anyway. Before they wildly veered off track and got lazy with the writing. So what house do I stand for? There you go. I always had a love of hopeless causes and underdogs. It's a shame what they did with the last of the Starks, really, in a lot of ways. But yet again, lazy writing. But my favourite non-Stark character? Still Tyrion. Has to be. I think a small part of the backlash against the last season especially was all the people who in the first 2 seasons had named their newly born daughter Daenerys or Khaleesi, and then suddenly watched their daughter's namesake turn into a psycho. I mean, as a couple of people are pointing out on Instagram and indeed Facebook, the signs were there all along. She was the daughter of the Mad King after all. She was abused by her brother. She was developing what I'd call Jesus complex. Yeah. So for anybody with the wit to see it, the signs were all there. So yeah, that was just an amusing observation. Still without a reenactment group. But, you know, I'm there welcome at 2 voluntary organisations. I know despite the fact I'm very rarely in, I'm still welcome at certain pubs in town. I also had someone who I now consider a friend be very honest with me earlier on this week. Or was it last? Doesn't matter. But basically she said that when I first began to get involved with a certain place, she completely misjudged me. To which I said, what probably is trouble, and she was like, I do get that a lot, and that is one of the major triggers for me. If I feel like I'm being judged, and judged badly, it tends to have a very negative reaction. It's the biggest trigger for me. Because I've done a lot in my life that I'm not proud of anyway. So when people think me capable of certain things, it triggers a reaction in me. Mostly a negative one. But, you know, it's just taken me a long while to prove myself, and it's frustrating for me. In a way, I like the acceptance, don't get me wrong. But neither of these places help out my finances. My diagnosis process for ADHD, autism, call it what you will, or whatever it is I am, has stalled. It was after 3 very helpful face-to-face meetings with a psychiatric nurse at my local doctor's surgery. She helped me fill in an online form. describing my symptoms and the difficulties I have in everyday life. And we basically established that two things that make me feel uncomfortable and I get stressed over is doing stuff online, other than this maybe, and filling in forms. So, roughly a fortnight ago, apparently I'm not ADHD, autistic or whatever enough. Here's another form to fill in. Oh, and here's somewhere you can get online help. I give up. For now, anyway. You know, I specifically stated that these are two things that stress me out and give me difficulties. And what do? I know, it's the bureaucracy. So I'm no closer. In fact, I'm back at square one, really. Which is the experience I've had in a lot of areas of my life. I think in a way, it is easier for me to get accepted as a volunteer because people are desperate for volunteers. You know? Oh, look who it is. There she is. Hello, Alex. Brief appearance by the household cat. Hello, go. Yeah, what else has been going on? I'm fast becoming a fixture in the local branch of the Geek Retreat franchise. I play the occasional game that I bring in. I'm planning on taking this down at some point. Once I mull over the rules, anyway. And I'll probably do a few playthroughs of my own first. It's something I spent a lot of my childhood doing because I didn't find it easy to socialise. Playing board games and tabletop RPGing with myself. Sounds a bit sad, doesn't it? But it's something I will retreat back into in times of stress as well. I mean, 25, 26 years ago, when I spent time inside on remand, I was making up my own board games to stave off boredom at night, because I had my own cell, because I was on the medical wing rather than in the general prison population. I never saw the inside of a prison cell before. In my youth, I saw the inside of a police holding cell a couple of times after drunken nights out. And I haven't been back since. My partner keeps me in line some of the time, and just my fear of being back there. So, prison system worked for me. I view that period of my life with more than a little shame still, which is the driving force behind making sure I don't do anything to get myself back there again. I still sometimes, when I have trouble sleeping, I lie awake and thoughts of that time comes back to me and I cringe. I think we all have moments in our life we look back on like that. You know, the whole "what the hell was I doing" thing. What the hell was I doing? Behaving like an idiot and not taking any responsibility for the consequences of my actions until I had to. Even then, it took me years after that to fully contemplate and understand. But eventually I did. I suppose that's better than some people. Oh, and on a brighter note to end, my Brazilian salmon pink tarantula, Artemisia, after a week of spending a lot of time in her hole and not eating, and then spending a week in her burrow without us seeing her, has finally come out all shiny and new with a very skinny bum. She's molted, and is now twice the size she was. I don't know if you're going to be able to see her. She's just down there. Hello. Hello, little man. That's our very friendly Siamese koi fighting fish. He's not shy. I'm beginning to get out of the period where I'd given up on everything. It's been a struggle. But hopefully I'll be back regularly. I just suffered from a loss of confidence for a while. It happens. But hopefully things will improve. it looks like I could get involved in a couple of major projects at Ipswich Community Hub. I'm more than happy to. And at the general meeting, there was a lot of talk about providing more structure, which is a good thing, and organisation. People like myself need that in life. If all is chaos, we behave like pure chaos. Sometimes that's a good thing, but not all the time. Well, hopefully it's pleasant to see me again, and I shall be doing more videos in the near future. If there's anything subject you'd like me to tackle, feel free to drop an idea. Yeah. Welcome back to my crazy brain train.